Hey there. Thank you for listening to the Living Unoffended podcast about this lifestyle of forgiveness, praying for enemies, loving our enemies. I got to tell you, this may not be a big deal to you, but I did want to make you aware of this since you're obviously interested in the topic and you're listening. I do have a book that is now available for pre-order. It's called Living Unoffended. That's right. It's coming out in June. I have to do my own sound effects because I don't know that you care, but I'll try to make it sound like you do. That's out in June, and please do pre-order if you're thinking about getting it. They did a great job laying it out. The designers did. It's so good. So it's excerpts from Unoffendable, and also Life is Hard, God is Good, Let's Dance, and Blessed Are the Misfits, and stuff I've written. So into short chapters, and then also I added 20 additional chapters, and then a whole bunch of stick figure drawings for real to lighten everything. And the way it came out and they laid it out, it's so creative how they did it, and I just cannot be happier with that. So if you're interested, you can check it out. It's on Amazon and stuff. If you want to find it, and you can pre-order it, and it helps. The pre-orders really help because then I guess the retailers take notice of that sort of stuff and it gets it out there. So thank you. Let's talk about this whole thing, this whole loving your enemies thing, praying for people. I am so thankful. I've got a ton of emails. I've been enjoying reading them. So thanks for sending them about people who are putting this into action, sometimes for the first time in their lives. And Sandy sent me her Substack, a link to her Substack that she wrote. And I really like this so much. I wanted to read some of it to you because she was really upset, fearful, angered, frustrated by a political situation. And I don't want to get into exactly what it is. In fact, she doesn't get into all the details, but it was impactful for people around her whom she loves. And she was extremely frustrated. But she said, and this is from her Substack, she said, later that morning, after she read about Jesus telling us we need to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute you, she said, later that morning, as I walked through the neighborhood thinking about this passage in light of the news, my feelings, and the justifiable fear that I have and anger of my loved ones, I sensed the Lord telling me to pray for my enemies, the people I'm angry with, those in power who appall me. Ugh. Loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you sounds reasonable until your enemy has a title, a name, and the power to harm you and your family. That is so insightful. It's true. It's the same thing about loving people. I love the people versus actually loving an individual drives you crazy. Anybody can love the people, but loving that person you actually don't like, whom you might even be afraid of or angry at or find despicable, now we're talking. So yeah, now that your enemy has a title, a name, and the power to harm you and your family, that's different. She said, so right there on my walk, I prayed for them. Not just a get them, Lord, kind of prayer, which is how I most often pray for people who mistreat me, but I prayed blessings over them and their families. I prayed that God would surround them with God-fearing followers of Christ to speak truth into their hearts and minds. These are people in Washington, D.C., she said. I prayed that God would give them wisdom as they lead our country and make decisions and carry out their duties. I prayed that God would change their hearts and call them to repentance and submission to the Lord. And she says, you guys, this is absolutely absurd. I can honestly say in the 40 years I have faithfully walked with the Lord, I've never prayed for my enemies like this. I'm praying for wisdom and blessing over people I believe are acting foolishly and cruelly. This makes no earthly sense, and yet this is a radical demonstration of what it means to live as a disciple of Jesus in this upside-down kingdom. When I got home from my walk, I added my enemies to my prayer list. I listed them by name inside the cover of my beloved journal. There, sandwiched between my children's names and my closest friends, are the names of powerful men who are making decisions I find unconscionable. Men I actively dislike, men whose actions I find detestable, men I would avoid at all costs. I want to say I hate them, but I'm sure Jesus would advise against this. But in that act of adding their names to my prayer list, I felt a shift in my posture. Rather than helplessness, I felt strength and hope. And she quotes Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. This is life-changing, and I don't say that lightly, reading what Sandy wrote here. I believe this type of prayer has power to change my enemies, power to change the situation, and power to change me. If everyone who calls herself a follower and disciple of Christ did this one thing, loved her enemies, and prayed for those who persecute her, can you imagine the impact on our nation, on the world? I'm not saying we don't need Christians in politics. We desperately do. I'm not saying we don't need people serving on the ground. By all means, if you can, go. I'm not saying we don't need wise teachers on the internet crafting in-the-moment commentary to help us think biblically about current events. If that's you, please keep on. But we also need this, ordinary followers of Jesus doing the extraordinary work of praying for our enemies. I'm telling you, this is not normal. It's upside down. This is countercultural, and this is how we abide. Right. This is how people like me and you, the slow processors and the non-anxious voices, participate in God's upside-down kingdom, not with our heads in the sand, but with our hearts firmly rooted in the true vine. Great job, Sandy Cooper, Substack. It's so true. This is not putting your head in the sand. This is not avoidance. But if you're going to engage, if you're a believer and you're going to engage in ideas, let's say in the public square, on Twitter or anywhere, and you don't speak with a heart that's like you haven't already been praying for your enemies, dumb stuff and hateful stuff is going to come out. Non-redemptive stuff is going to come out. I see this all over the place. I'm like, how could you possibly have just written that with a posture of you were praying for that person before you wrote that? So this applies to me too. I've had to learn this over and over. I've been embarrassed. I look back like, oh man, why did I yeah, so we can grow up, though. That's the wonderful thing. And I have been growing up, and this is abiding. Like Sandy nails it. This is what it means to be connected to him. Like we're spending time with him. We're talking with him. We're spending time talking with him about our enemies, the people who drive us crazy. I wanted to tell you something, too. This came up a couple times with friends. You know what one of the most frustrating, most angering things there is to me, and maybe you too, is just plain being misunderstood. You know what I mean? Like somebody just does not understand. They don't get it. And you can't fix it. Like you want to explain, like, no, that's not what I meant. Here's what I mean. No, that's not actually my viewpoint. Here's my actual viewpoint. No. Like just being, and sometimes it's deliberately misunderstood. That is just so frustrating to me. I'd like to be understood, right? So this is probably you too, but I think it's, for some of us, it's just like, no, I can explain it. But the truth is we're going to be misunderstood. We're going to have people think the absolute worst of us. I know for a fact, like my own, I'll give you a cultural, position. I think male and female is a real thing. It's not a social construct. It's quite real. It's written in every cell in our bodies, and our brains are different, literally physiologically different more than 100 ways between men and women. And you can't transplant a brain. You can get as many surgeries as you want. You will not become the other sex. It's not going to happen. That is my belief. Now, does that make me hateful? Well, in some people's eyes, it automatically makes me hateful. I would like for them to understand, no, I don't. Here's why I don't think this makes me hateful at all, and why I'm still rooting for everybody. And I'm like, I'm so like, it's not hate. No, it's not. But you want to explain that to people, but they're going to misunderstand. And why would we be surprised at that in life, that you would be misunderstood, that your motives would be completely taken out of context, or you would be accused of the worst possible things that aren't true? Like, that's what Jesus told us was going to happen. It happened to him. And he's on the cross, all of these people misunderstanding who he is, what he was up to, not getting it, accusing him of ridiculous things that are so untrue. And he's asking for the Lord to forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I know I'm going to be accused of things that aren't true. You will be too. You can be praying for your enemies and they can still come after you. You can be rooting for them and they'll still come after you. But the wild thing is that Jesus is on the cross and he's still rooting for these people. He's interceding on their behalf. And I think we can be like that. I don't think that's just a Jesus thing. I mean, and I think it's available to us who are followers of him, who over time we're practicing this thing like Sandy's doing, to say, I have to pray for my enemies. I have to do this. I got to put these people whom I find despicable right in this book next to my own children and pray for them. I think that's so profound. So good job. I got a note here from, I don't know if I'm supposed to say her name, so I won't. She said, anger and forgiveness has been my struggle for a long time. I say, yeah, you're forgiven, but then deep down I still hold a grudge. So I have a question. I've never been close with my two younger sisters, especially the sister who's 5 years younger than me. She's always been trouble. She's toxic. She's a narcissist. She accused me of horrible things that were not true over and over. That's the misunderstanding thing again. Daily, there were new things she would say. I blocked her. It was weighing me down. I finally got the courage to send her an email letting her know how I feel and told her I forgive her, but I can't go back to our sister relationship. Now, am I doing this forgiveness wrong? In God's eye, am I to be in a relationship with her and reconcile and hang out with her? I don't have any anger towards her anymore, but I am too afraid of her. Her words seem so hurtful and evil. I don't want to relive any of that ever again from her. So, yeah, I say this a lot. I think maybe you're familiar with this, but you needed to hear it again. No, I don't think forgiveness necessarily means restoration of relationship. And if somebody's awful over and over and over, I think it makes it your duty to pray for your sister, and you have to. And slowly, as you do this, you'll see that your heart starts to bend toward her. And there may be a restoration of relationship down the line. And I think you can root for that. I think you can ask God for that. But you don't have to do that right now. But I think it's good to ask the Lord for that and realize that he can work in her life, and maybe she'll be surrounded by people she can listen to and have a relationship with. You got to root for it. It may be a long shot, but this is a way to guard your heart too, like your own life, so that you're not filled with that stuff. You say that you've forgiven her, but you also say you have a hard time. You're still holding a grudge after you say you've forgiven people. So I know, very natural, very understandable, but this is something I would highly recommend. Like, even if you don't have an ongoing relationship, that you're rooting for her, so that you don't have to wear this around the rest of your life. So thanks for the honesty. If you ever want to send an email, you can. It's Brant@BrantHansen.com. If you have questions, comments, I'd love to hear little stories about how you're walking this out and how it's going. I've been getting those. Have been very encouraging. I'll share some more next time we talk on this here podcast. By the way, thank you again to United Faith Mortgage. They're so awesome. You know, they give out of their own money every time they do like a closing on a mortgage or a refinance or whatever. They actually give to Cure to help heal kids. They help pay for surgeries, which is just a beautiful thing. So I appreciate their friendship. I appreciate that they get our show. They understand. And I know they will take good care of you. Tell them, by the way, like, hey, I was listening to Brant and he recommended you guys. I thought I should talk to you. Tell them. They will treat you like family. They're a family business, but they have huge resources. They're a direct lender, which gives them a lot more flexibility on stuff. So yeah, may want to check them out. It's UnitedFaithMortgage.com online. And again, thank you for listening. I'm honored you're on the journey with me on this as we're all growing up.